joining us on this Zoom call. Steph,
Good morning.
I met Steph about almost 2 years ago now. No, about a year and a half ago when I did my slightly crazy tour from Cornwall to Carlisle, and someone said, "Oh, you've got to check out these guys at Hay Mill." So I sent Steph a very random email saying, "Hi, can I pop in?" And I came into this to their church in Hay Mills, which is like on the outskirts of Birmingham, and it was absolutely blown away by it. It was amazing. So so when I was doing these interviews, I gave Steph another Facebook and said, can I come and would you mind having a chat? So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Okay, my name is Stefan. I am married to an amazing lady called Jane, and we're a blended family, and we have 5 children between us, ranging from 6 to 21.
Oh, wow.
We are co-pastors of a congregational fresh expression of church called Hay Mills CC in South Yardley in Birmingham. We are on the main road, just off the main road between Birmingham and the airport. We're in an area which is about 40% Muslim, and the rest of them are a ragtag bunch of people from all over the place, Polish, lots of Eastern European, lots of different people from different places seem to have landed here. I was employed by the Congregational Federation, which before I was employed by them, I'd never heard of them. And so that was quite interesting. I had an interesting, sorry?
That's a bit like Star Trek.
Yeah, it kind of was. I mean, it's like I'd been caring for my mother for 6 years, and then she passed in the end of January, and then I was looking for a job, did some searches, and then this came up, and my wife said to me, this seems like if you could write the perfect job for you, this is it. I went for the interviews. I was at least qualified, 0 experience of church leadership, a 0 experience of preaching, all that kind of stuff. I'd led Bible studies, and I'd led a few prayer meetings, a prayer group for about a year. So I felt completely underqualified. But anyway, got the job through God's grace, and really kind of knew this was God putting me in this position. And all the way through, we've been going almost 6 years now. All the way through, I just keep saying to God, open a door, make this happen, help us in this situation. And really, prayer has been the backbone of this ministry. And that's been really important, to focus on praying and listening to God, as well as telling him about how you're feeling. I was employed for about 3 years by the Confed. About 9 months before the end of those 3 years, I was taken to the CEO and said, you've either got to become an independent, self-governing, self-financing church in 9 months, or you can fold. Which, without any warning, by the way, I was just summoned up to the head office and I was told this. Very gently, very nicely, very respectfully, but the funding is going to end in 9 months. So we set about, this task. We said, what do we have in hand when we first started? And my wife had been a stay and play playgroup leader. So we started Little Sheep Stay and Play, and we got some mums, some dads, some grandmas, some granddads come along with their kids, and that's how we started. We started building relationships. One of the key things I did was we were set back about 25-30 feet from the actual road, and it's like a rat run where you go from one major road to another major road, so people are usually just zooming by, but there are some people walking by. So what I did was a really highly technical evangelistic tool. I grabbed a brush and I swept the drive, and I just kept sweeping the drive day in, day out, for an hour or two, just kept sweeping the edge of the drive and talking to everyone who went past. Trying to kind of gather what people knew about the church, most people didn't even realize it was a church. And then people who did realize it was a church thought it had been closed for years. It had only been closed for 3 years. One guy said, I didn't even know it was a church. I've lived around the corner for 35 years. and it's never been opened. So even though my wife and I lived 5 minutes walk around the corner, I took my big blue tub of a car, because I've got a 7-seater, and I parked it on the drive, and I opened the doors, the outer doors, and then kept the inner doors locked, just in case. So, but then people would just come and start knocking on the door. And my wife and I were like, yeah, come in, have a tea or a coffee, and she'd make cake, and you've experienced that that kind of welcome.
It was brilliant. It really was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of developed, and my wife has a real gift for hospitality. You know, I don't do so well with the humans. So, and I've been told that quite a few times by a few people. But she is brilliant. She's a real people person. She's got great hospitality. She's got the gift of hospitality. And we looked at that. She's great at baking, and it's like, what can you do? We went to a course a couple of years ago, and this really intelligent man of God from Nigeria said to us, we were talking, he said, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what do you have in your hand? And we thought back about what we did, and we realized that's exactly what we did. What did we have in our hand? We had 2 people who were available, and I was getting paid part-time, and my wife wasn't getting paid. So, and that's still, my wife is now getting paid part-time, and I'm getting paid even more part-time. And we're still on the same wages as we were coming up to 6 years ago. Yeah. So if you want to do this for money, then you're kidding yourself. You have to feel a real call of God. You have to know you're being planted in that place, whether it be in a building or just in a community. And reaching out to people and being hospitable is, I think, one of the key things that we did that really helped us. Yeah, go on.
So the start of Hay Mills was the fact that you were placed into a church that had been redundant, and you were given 3 years more or less to bring it to life, and they more or less stopped your funding, and you managed to, with the congregation you planted in 3 years, began to hold it all. What's the word? You managed to basically save the church and continue to live and grow and thrive.
Well, when we got to the actual point of jump off to be an independent church, none of us, the people who were there, and there was 10 people, including my wife and myself, who came to the belonging and believing day we did, in terms of casting vision from the church and seeing who would actually want to be a member of the church. Now, 9 of those people, including my wife and myself, are still with us. One decided to move away because of her mum's health reasons. And, that's a testament to itself, that these people were committed from the start, and they've stayed committed. Even during the lockdown, they've stayed committed, which I think is an amazing act of God. I certainly don't think it's anything that Jane and I have done. I think God has really just drawn them in and has really made them, part of us as a community. And we're quite tight. We don't have our own kind of language and hand signs kind of thing, but we're quite tight together. And you've met some of them, and you can tell.
Like family. It felt like a welcoming family. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we wanted to do was, when we had the church building, I mean, the heating was not working, so I spent almost £6,000 worth of Confed money getting 2 forced air heating blowers, replacing 2 of the 3 that were broken or redundant. And what that's done is mean that it's, when those are on, within half an hour, the big high ceiling building is warm. And I think I'm not sure when you came in, I can't even remember, that seems like 300 years ago, but it's warm, even if you have the doors open, it's warm.
Heat wave, so I didn't see the heating, but yeah.
No, but yourself, Andy, if you go into a church building and it's cold, or it feels coldy, it doesn't feel welcoming. So we wanted to have it nice and welcome in terms of that. We spent a lot of time making the inside the front end look more like somebody's living room. So we've got tables, we've got settees, we've got lots of things on the wall, artwork we've done over the years. And then the far end, we've got the pews, which were just literally thrown up the top on the platform. We brought them down, we put them on the side as chairs, so that's, nice. We've got more kind of some posters up about Jesus and stuff like that. so people know that kind of end is the churchy end, but it doesn't really. When we're doing, let's say, a stay and play, the whole building, we have a building that's about 30 foot wide by about 50 foot long, and then there's a couple of small rooms and a small little tiny kitchen, to say the least. And and that's the room we have, and that's what we've used. We've taken what God has given us and used that.
Yeah. When you said about what's in your hand, I was reminded it's probably where the guy got it from about Moses, and they ask him what's in his hand. Yes, he has a stick. But when you read the Bible, this stick is used like amazingly. It becomes a snake. It's the Red Sea. Does that? I guess it's about what God, God being faithful with what He's given you. But and I was going to say, and so you've been running for 6 years, and you've seen people come to faith, haven't you? And you've seen
yes, we've what's great. Certainly, two of the members have come to faith. Sorry, four of the members have come to faith, and one was already, I would say, a real on fire Christian, and a couple of others have had their faith really renewed.
Nice.
I mean, in the first, before obviously the lockdown, in the first 18 months, I baptized 13, 14 people.
Yeah, I mean that's really exciting.
So that's,
really. Yeah.
Well, I mean, some of them we baptised in a 10-foot paddling pool on the front drive.
Yeah.
With cars going past and people going past and just stopping, as a witness to the community. So people in the community are like, what on earth is going on there on a Sunday?
Yeah.
They've got a big paddling pool. They've got 3 women, and this big tall dude is dunking them in the water. So we managed to get a grant, and we've got a proper mobile baptistry now, a proper wooden thing, which is brilliant. And I mean, the Easter before last, I baptised a lady and her stepmom. She was 66, and her stepmom was 76. And I baptised them on the Thursday before Easter because they were going to do an Easter service baptism, but they got a bit kind of worried about it, and fretting about it. I was like, forget that. Instead of the Sunday, we're going to do it on the Thursday during the day. I'll tell the members, anyone, are you right with the members coming yet? So about 6 or 7 of the members came, and a couple of their friends turned up, and we just did it on a Thursday lunchtime.
Yeah.
Because the most important thing is the baptism rather than the showy thing of it. So it's not necessarily that has to be the be all and end all.
Yeah, I think there's something quite exciting about the fact that actually real people people getting baptized, people making commitments, people making a public statement of their faith. I kind of think we often hear about churches growing, which is lovely. But then when you start chatting to people, you realise, actually what's happened is like 2/3 of the people have come from some flashy church up the road to this church. Yeah. And all it is this really people becoming Christians, or is it just growth through transfer? But actually hearing ordinary people who weren't connected to any local community, Christian community, finding Jesus or making a recommitment to Jesus, getting baptized and following him is what it's about, rather than a bit of church hopping, which I think is really exciting. And the other thing that really excited me is that whole idea of a blank canvas, that sort of idea that you had a church that was open, and a church building, and you just said, well, actually, what would the kingdom of God look like? Or how could the kingdom of God look like for the people here? What has God given us? and just faithfully did it. And it wasn't like through, I don't know, sort of anything that was, I can't remember the right word really, unusual or weird. It was actually just faithful obedience, human relationships, loving people, welcome. Stuff actually most people in most places could do. It's just about the incredible thing is the fact that you're actually doing it, you're making it work, you're being faithful. I think it's the key. I think it is the big thing is probably your obedience. Really, is the thing that makes it exciting. And actually,
I mean that's a kind of word that makes my knees go weak. Obedience.
It's a scary word.
It is. I mean, but what I'm saying to you is, there's 2 things we really did, which I think were foundational. One was change the name from Hay Mills Congregational Church to Hay Mills CC.
Yeah.
Now, people then are inquisitive and say, what does the CC mean?
Yeah.
And we said, well, what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
So some people have said, it's community church, it's a children's church, or it's a community centre, or, I mean, one guy actually rocked up and tongue in cheek said, well, where, Mill CC, where's the cricket pitch then? Because he was like joking about it.
Yeah.
But what it did was it set the tone of two things. One, it isn't just a church in terms of that's what even though when you walk in, on the top, on the back, there's a massive painted sign that says Jesus is Lord.
Yeah.
So there's no question. There's a Celtic cross on the outside of the build. I mean, at the front. So there's no thing. So and then also I put up posters like "It's church, Jim, but not as you know it," things like that.
Please start Federation.
Yes. But the second thing we did was when we started to kind of formulate, our core values and our aims. What we came up with, our values are wild, welcoming, inclusive, loving, and diverse. And that has really held us in good stead, because we really stick to that.
Yeah,
we try to be welcoming to everyone. We try to be inclusive of everyone, and that sometimes is difficult. And there's some people who've come in who've been a bit confrontational. But we try to be loving to everyone, and we celebrate diversity.
Yeah.
So as God does, He celebrates the diversity of people, and that's really important. And we've had people, I would say, from almost all over the world. We've had people from South Africa, from Australia, from Canada, from India, Pakistan, from Russia. One of the ladies, we employed a lady to help us with our accounts. She's from Brazil. And she's not really what I would call a Christian. She might term herself as that, but I doubt it. But it didn't matter. Her husband's from a Catholic tradition and was in training to be a Catholic priest, but gave it up to marry this lady. So everyone's got a story. One of the things we did was listen to people's stories, tell our story, listen to people's stories, interact, build community, and I think that's really helped.
Cool, fantastic. That's a real exciting summary of what if you were going to talk to I can say a younger version of yourself. Actually, 6 years. You probably it's not that much younger. What would you say to yourself starting out?
I think a number of things. I think first thing is get your work-life balance right. Jane and I have got that wrong so many times. Yeah, there are times when we've had an event on a Saturday when we've been there at 12:15 on the Friday night or the Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And had to come home with our children who were asleep on the settees while we were working, getting everything, right and in place and all that kind of stuff. What we tried to do was overreach at the start by doing these events like a summer fair, a Christmas fair, all that kind of stuff, and lots of things before we had enough volunteers to really, to do it. I mean, now we look back and we think, okay, if we want to do a summer fair, that's no problem. We can go, okay, well, so-and-so will come and help us. We can talk to so-and-so. And that's now, we try to do that. One of the things we were forced to do was we had pressure, not forced, but pressure from the Confed to start doing Sunday services. So we decided we'd do them on between 5 and 6 on a Sunday afternoon, totally alternative to everyone else. And then my wife and I spent 9 months doing monthly Sunday services before we were ready, and virtually nobody came. So we'd get ready, I'd get all the message ready, and we'd get all the songs ready, get the whole church set up, and then we'd sit there for an hour. And quite often I'd do the message anyway, just for practice. You got to remember when I preached for the first time when the church was launched, that was the second time I'd ever preached in my life.
Yeah.
The first time was at our sister congregational church in Ladypool Road in Sparkhill, and that was the first time I ever preached. They didn't know that when they invited me to preach, and I said to them afterwards, "How was it?" They were like, "Oh, it's good." I said, "Good, that was my first time."
Oh, wow.
They were like, "What?" But yeah, the second time I preached was then, and it didn't go well, and I meandered and I wasn't focused. But that's another thing, is have a go. And I've always been a kind of have a go kind of person, and have courage, to try and break through. And what I've been told is I take what might be obstacles and I turn them into opportunities. I have a mentor who was in the Church of England for 30 years. And that's one of the key things. I had a mentor, and he's stuck with me all the way through, and he has guided me. He's, he lives in Manchester, so it's like a phone thing. And he has guided me and counseled me and lifted me up, so many times when I've just been, the September before last, we were expecting a grant and that ran out, and my wife and I didn't get paid. And we weren't sure how we could survive, how we could pay our rent. So we managed to pay the rent and the bills, but we had no money for food. So I had to quickly stop all I was doing, put out 6 applications for funding for the church. We couldn't pay our bills, at the church, because we didn't have any money coming in. So did that. We told the church members and some people, and they came forward with money and food, and people said, I've transferred £200 into your account, and eventually, and then I applied for a grant for our wages. So we ended up getting 2/3 of our wages in donations, and then we ended up getting our full wages from this grant. So not only did, even though we carried on, you could see the next Sunday, after we get paid in the week, the next Sunday, you could see the members, turning up to say, well, are Stephen and Jane going to turn up? Is the church still going to be running? And we did. Turned up, church was down there, full Sunday service, full message about faithfulness, about trusting in God's provision. And that was a great witness to them. And they from then they were just like stunned. And I think that's why they're even more committed now, because they realise they've got 2 leaders who are faithful, and you might term obedient, and who believe and trust that God is going to provide for them.
Amen. And I think it's almost you become the message, actually. And I think actually who you are speaks even louder than what you say. So brilliant, fantastic. Thank you so much, Stephen. That's been brilliant. That's been cool, and we've got loads of exciting scriptures in there as well, which is great. So thank you and bless you. That's been amazing.
Thanks, Andy.